The galaxy had forgotten Earth. 12,000 years was a long time. Long enough for stars to be born and die. Long enough for empires to rise and fall. Long enough for an entire species to become nothing more than a scary story told to children. Ambassador Valthara sat in her floating chair at the center of the great chamber. Her blue skin reflected the soft lights of 100 holographic displays. Around her, representatives from 30 different species argued about trade routes and border disputes. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. The Galactic Concord had kept peace among the stars for 10,000 years. They had rules. They had order. They had completely forgotten about the small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. Earth was just a name in old history files. A warning, a mistake. The story was simple. 12,000 years ago, humanity had been found by the elder races. They were young. They were violent. They fought wars among themselves over nothing. The Concord had tried to help them. They had shared technology and knowledge. But humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable. Then came the collapse event. Something terrible had happened on Earth. The details were unclear. The records were sealed. But everyone knew the result. Humanity was gone. Their planet was dead. The sector was marked as forbidden space, and no one had gone there since. Valthara had heard the stories as a child. Her mother had told her about the humans. They were monsters, her mother said. They ate meat. They killed each other. They could not be trusted. It was better that they were gone. She believed those stories. Everyone did. The alarm changed everything. It started as a small beep, then another. Then every display in the great chamber turned red. Valthara sat up straight. In 300 years of service, she had never seen anything like this. "What is happening?" she demanded. A technician rushed to her side. His 4 hands were shaking. "Ambassador, our deep space sensors have detected something. A ship. It came from the forbidden sector." "That is impossible. Nothing lives there." "I know, Ambassador, but the ship is real. It is moving toward conquered space, and it is moving fast." The chamber fell silent. Every representative stopped talking. Every eye turned to the main display as it flickered to life. The ship was unlike anything Valthara had ever seen. Conquered ships were smooth and elegant. They flowed through space like water. This ship was different. It was sharp, angular. It looked like it had been built for one purpose only: war. "Can we identify the design?" Valthara asked. "No, Ambassador. It matches nothing in our records. But the way it moves, our computers cannot calculate its trajectory. It changes direction too quickly. It accelerates too fast. Our best ships could not match it." Fear spread through the chamber like a cold wind. The representatives began to whisper among themselves. Some called for weapons to be armed, others wanted to flee. Valthara raised her hand for silence. "We will follow first contact protocols. Open a communication channel." "Ambassador, are you sure? We do not know what—" "Open the channel." The technician obeyed. For a long moment, there was only static. Then a voice came through the speakers. It spoke in a language so old that most of the representatives did not recognize it. But the translation systems did. The language was Terran Standard, the language of humans. "We remember," the voice said. "Do you?" Valthara felt her blood turn to ice. Around her, chaos erupted. Representatives screamed. Some fainted. Others ran for the exits. But she stayed in her chair, staring at the display, watching the impossible ship grow closer. Humans were supposed to be dead. Humanity was supposed to be extinct. The collapse event had destroyed them. Everyone knew this. It was history. It was fact. But facts could be wrong. "Respond to their message," Valthara said. Her voice was steady even though her hands were shaking. "Tell them we received their transmission. Ask them to identify themselves." The technician sent the message. They waited. The ship did not slow down. It did not change course. It kept coming, straight toward the heart of Concord space. Then another message arrived. "We are the children of Earth. We are the ones you left behind. We have not forgotten what was done to us. We have not forgotten the lies you told. We have not forgotten the truth you buried. We are coming home. And we have questions." The message ended. The chamber was silent. Velthara looked around at the terrified faces of the galaxy's leaders. These were beings who controlled fleets of warships. They ruled planets and star systems. They thought they were powerful. But in this moment, they looked like children who had just learned that monsters were real. Contact the archive, Velthara ordered. I want every record about Earth, every file about humanity, everything we have. Ambassador, those records are sealed. They have been sealed for 12,000 years. Then unseal them. Now. The technician hesitated. Ambassador, only the High Council can authorize. I am authorizing it. If what that ship says is true, then we have been believing a lie for 12,000 years. I want to know the truth before those humans arrive. I want to know what we really did to them. The technician nodded and ran off to obey. Velthara turned back to the display. The ship was still coming. It would reach Concord space in 3 days. 3 days to prepare. 3 days to find answers. 3 days to face a past that everyone had tried to bury. She thought about the stories her mother had told her. Humans were monsters. Humans were dangerous. Humans deserved what happened to them. But what if those stories were wrong? What if the Concorde had not been the heroes of that ancient tale? What if they had been something else entirely? The ship moved through the darkness of space. It did not slow down. It did not stop. It came forward with the certainty of something that had been waiting a very long time. And somewhere inside that ship, humans were watching, waiting, remembering. 12,000 years was a long time to wait, but humans were patient. They had learned patience in the darkness. They had learned survival in the depths of a dying world. They had learned hate in the silence of abandonment. Now they were back, and the galaxy would learn what it meant to be remembered by those it had tried to forget. Velthara watched the ship until her eyes hurt. She did not move. She did not speak. She only thought about one thing. What had the Concorde really done to Earth? And what would humanity do to them in return? The answer was coming. Ready or not, the answer was coming, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The neutral station called Axis Prime floated at the center of known space. It was the largest structure ever built by the Concorde. 100 different species lived and worked there. It was a place of peace, a place of diplomacy, a place where wars ended and treaties began. Today, it was a place of fear. Velthara stood at the main docking bay with 50 armed guards behind her. She had not slept in 3 days. The records she had found in the archive had kept her awake. They had filled her with questions she did not want to ask. The human ship had arrived an hour ago. It hung in space outside the station like a predator watching its prey. Now a smaller craft was approaching the docking bay. The humans were coming aboard. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Velthara held her breath. The guards raised their weapons. 5 figures stepped through the door. They were human. There was no doubt about that. But they were not like the images in the old records. Those ancient humans had been small and weak. These humans were different. They stood tall and straight. Their bodies were strong. Their eyes were sharp and clear and missed nothing. The leader was a woman with dark skin and silver hair cut short. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations. But she walked like a queen. She walked like someone who had nothing to prove and nothing to fear. She stopped in front of Velthara and looked at her for a long moment. Then she spoke. I am Captain Mira Okonkwo of the Earth Defense Force. I speak for my people. We have come to talk. Velthara found her voice. I am Ambassador Velthara of the Senari Hegemony. I represent the Galactic Concorde. We welcome you to Axis Prime. The words sounded hollow. Both of them knew this was not a normal diplomatic meeting. This was something else entirely. Will you come to the Great Chamber? Velthara asked. The representatives of the Concorde are waiting. Captain Okonkwo nodded. Lead the way. They walked through the station in silence. Crowds gathered to watch. Aliens of every shape and size stared at the humans with fear and wonder. Some whispered prayers, some cried, some simply ran away. The humans did not react. They walked calmly through the crowds. They had the patience of people who had waited a very long time for this moment. The great chamber was full. Every representative was there. Every seat was taken. When the humans entered, the room fell completely silent. Captain Okonkwo walked to the center of the chamber. She looked around at all the faces watching her. Then she began to speak. 12,000 years ago, your ancestors found my people. We were young. We were still learning. We had not yet reached the stars on our own. Your ancestors came to Earth and offered us friendship. They offered us knowledge. They offered us a place in the galactic community. She paused. Her eyes were hard. That was the lie you told yourselves. That was the story you wrote in your history books. But it was not the truth. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Representatives shifted in their seats. Some looked confused. Others looked afraid. The truth, Captain Okonkwo continued, is that your ancestors feared us. They saw something in humanity that terrified them. They saw our anger, our passion, our refusal to give up. They saw that we would not bow to anyone, and they decided that we were too dangerous to live. That is not true, someone shouted. The collapse event destroyed Earth. It was your own fault. Captain Okonkwo smiled. It was not a friendly smile. There was no collapse event. Your ancestors created that story to hide what they really did. They did not try to help us. They tried to kill us. They destabilized our sun. They poisoned our atmosphere. They bombarded our planet with weapons that should have wiped us out completely. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted and argued. Some demanded proof. Others called the human a liar. Valthera did not shout. She did not argue. She simply remembered what she had found in the archive. The sealed files, the hidden records, the truth that had been buried for 12,000 years. Captain Okonkwo raised her hand. Silence fell. I have proof, she said. I have records that my ancestors kept. Video, audio, documents. Everything was preserved. Everything was passed down from generation to generation. We never forgot. We never forgave. She touched a device on her wrist. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed images of Earth 12,000 years ago. Beautiful cities, green forests, blue oceans. Then it showed the attack. Ships appeared in the sky. Not human ships. Concorde ships. They fired weapons that burned the air and boiled the seas. They released chemicals that killed millions in minutes. They blocked out the sun and turned day into endless night. The representatives watched in horror. Some covered their eyes. Some cried out in shock. But they could not deny what they were seeing. This is what you did to us, Captain Okonkwo said. This is the truth you buried. You tried to murder an entire species, and you almost succeeded. Valthera stepped forward. Her voice was shaking. How did you survive? We went underground, deep underground. We built cities beneath the surface where your weapons could not reach us. We grew food in artificial light. We recycled every drop of water. We did whatever we had to do to stay alive. For 12,000 years. For 12,000 years. Generation after generation. Parent to child. We survived. We adapted. We grew stronger. And we remembered everything. The chamber was silent. No one knew what to say. The history they had believed their entire lives was a lie. Their ancestors were not heroes. They were murderers. What do you want? Valthera asked finally. Revenge? War? Captain Okonkwo looked at her for a long moment. I want you to ask yourself that question. If someone did to your people what was done to mine, what would you want? She did not answer her own question. She let it hang in the air like a knife. We are not here to start a war, she said. We are here to talk, to show you the truth, to give you a chance to face what your ancestors did. And if we refuse, then we will know what kind of people you really are, and we will act accordingly. The meeting ended. The humans returned to their ship. The representatives scattered to contact their governments and share the terrible news. Valthera stayed behind. She sat alone in the empty chamber and thought about what she had learned. Everything she believed was wrong. Everything she had been taught was a lie. And somewhere out there, humanity was waiting, watching, remembering. They had survived the impossible. They had endured 12,000 years of darkness and suffering. They had every right to want revenge, but they had not attacked, not yet. They were giving the galaxy a chance. Valthera wondered if that chance would be enough. She wondered if anything could make up for what had been done. She wondered if the galaxy deserved forgiveness at all. The answers would come, but she was afraid of what they might be. The Concorde sent observers to Earth. It was the first time anyone had entered the Forbidden Sector in 12,000 years. Velthara led the delegation herself. She wanted to see the truth with her own eyes. She needed to understand what humanity had become. The journey took 3 weeks. As their ship approached the Sol system, Velthara felt her heart beating faster. She did not know what to expect. The old records showed a dead world, a burned planet, a grave. What she found was something else entirely. Earth was alive. The planet hung in space like a blue and green jewel. Clouds drifted across its surface. Oceans sparkled in the light of the sun. It was beautiful. It was impossible. It should have been dead. "How?" whispered one of the observers. "How did they do this?" Captain Okonkwo was waiting for them in orbit. Her ship led them down through the atmosphere. As they descended, Velthara saw cities, not ruined cities, living cities. Buildings reached toward the sky. Vehicles moved along roads and through the air. People walked in parks and gathered in squares. 8 billion humans lived on Earth. 8 billion survivors. 8 billion children of those who had refused to die. The delegation landed in a city called New Geneva. It was the capital of the unified Earth government. Captain Okonkwo led them through streets filled with curious onlookers. The humans stared at the aliens. Some smiled. Some frowned. None attacked. Velthara noticed something strange. There were no weapons visible anywhere, no soldiers, no guards. The humans walked freely without fear. It was very different from conquered worlds, where security forces were everywhere. "You do not have many soldiers," she observed. Captain Okonkwo smiled. "We have plenty of soldiers. You just cannot see them. After 12,000 years of preparing for war, every human knows how to fight, but we prefer to live in peace when we can." They visited hospitals and schools and factories. They saw children playing and old people sitting in gardens. They saw artists and scientists and farmers. They saw a civilization that had rebuilt itself from nothing. But it was when they left Earth that Velthara truly understood. The outer solar system was not empty. It was full. Shipyards stretched across the darkness of space. Massive structures floated around Jupiter and Saturn. Factories the size of moons produced weapons and vehicles, and technology that the observers had never seen before. "What is all this?" Velthara asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. "This is what 12,000 years of preparation looks like," Captain Okonkwo replied. "We built this while you forgot about us. We created technology you cannot imagine. We have ships that can cross the galaxy in weeks. We have weapons that can destroy stars. We have defenses that can stop anything you throw at us." The observers were silent. They had come expecting to find a weakened people struggling to survive. Instead, they found a civilization that could challenge the entire Concorde, perhaps defeat it. "Why have you not attacked?" Velthara asked. "You have the power. You have the right. Why show us mercy?" Captain Okonkwo looked at her with those ancient, patient eyes. "Because revenge is easy. Building something better is hard. We spent 12,000 years surviving. Now we want to live. We want trade and friendship and peace. But we will not be attacked again. We will not be betrayed again. We will not be forgotten again." The delegation returned to Axis Prime with their reports. The news spread quickly. Some species were terrified. Others saw opportunity. The galaxy had changed forever. The Kreth Dominion was terrified. The Kreth were warriors. They had built their empire through conquest and violence. They believed that strength was the only thing that mattered, and they saw humanity as a threat to their power. Admiral Krethos called a secret meeting of his war council. "We must strike now," he said. "Before the humans grow stronger, before they make alliances, we must destroy them while we still can." His advisors agreed. The Kreth began to prepare for war, but they made a mistake. They underestimated how much humanity had learned during their long exile. Human spies had infiltrated every corner of the galaxy. Human technology could detect Kreth communications. Humanity knew about the plot within hours. Captain Okonkwo received the news calmly. "They will try to assassinate me first," she said. "They think killing the leader will weaken us. They do not understand humans at all." The assassination attempt came during a diplomatic dinner on Axis Prime. Kreth agents poisoned the food. They planted explosives in the walls. They brought weapons hidden in their clothes. None of it worked. The poison did not affect human bodies. 12,000 years of adaptation had made them immune to most toxins. The explosives were detected and disabled before they could detonate. The hidden weapons were taken by security forces that moved faster than the Kreth could react. Captain Okonkwo did not even stand up from her chair. She simply looked at the Kreth ambassador as his agents were dragged away. "You have made a choice," she said quietly. "Now you will face the consequences." News of the failed attack spread quickly. Some species were outraged at the Kreth. Others were impressed by human technology. But everyone was afraid of what would happen next. The smaller species of the galaxy watched carefully. These were the races that the Concord had ignored for centuries. The weak, the poor, the forgotten. They saw in humanity something familiar. They saw survivors who had been abandoned and left to die. They saw people who had refused to give up. One by one, they began to send messages to Earth. They wanted friendship. They wanted alliance. They wanted to be part of something new. Valthera watched all of this happen. She saw the Concord beginning to crack. She saw old alliances breaking and new ones forming. She saw the galaxy changing around her. And she saw Captain Mira Okonkwo standing at the center of it all. Not as a conqueror, not as a destroyer, but as something more dangerous. A symbol, a reminder, a warning. Humanity had returned. They had not come for revenge. They had come for something harder. Something that would change everything. Justice. The galaxy would never be the same again. The question was whether it would survive the transformation. Valthera looked at the stars and wondered what would happen next. She did not know the answer, but she knew that whatever came, humanity would be ready. They had been ready for 12,000 years. War came to the galaxy like a storm that had been building for years. The Kreth Dominion did not wait for permission from the Concord. They launched their attack without warning. 100 warships struck at worlds that had allied with humanity. Cities burned. Millions died. The Kreth called it a defensive action. They said they were protecting the galaxy from human aggression. Everyone knew it was a lie. Captain Mira Okonkwo received the news on Earth. She stood in the command center of the Defense Force headquarters and watched the reports come in. Colony worlds destroyed. Refugee ships fleeing. The Kreth fleet advancing toward human space. "What are your orders, Captain?" her second-in-command asked. Mira closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about all the people who had died. She thought about the anger burning in her chest. She thought about how easy it would be to unleash the full power of human technology and wipe the Kreth from existence. Then she opened her eyes. "We will fight," she said, "but we will not become them. We will defend. We will protect. We will not destroy unless we have no other choice." The human fleet left Earth. They did not announce their departure. They did not broadcast threats. They simply appeared in the battle zone like ghosts. The Kreth had expected human ships to fight like their own. Head-on, brutal, destructive. They were wrong. Human ships moved in ways that defied understanding. They appeared and disappeared. They struck at engines and weapon systems and communications. They disabled without destroying. They wounded without killing. In 3 days, the Kreth fleet was crippled. 70 warships drifted helplessly in space. Their weapons were offline. Their engines were dead. But their crews were alive. Admiral Krethos could not understand it. He sat on his broken bridge and stared at the human ships surrounding him. He had expected death. He had expected revenge. Instead, he got something worse: mercy. "Why?" he demanded when Captain Okonkwo contacted him. "Why do you not destroy us? We attacked your allies. We tried to kill you. Why show weakness?" Mira looked at him through the view screen. "This is not weakness, Admiral. This is strength. Any fool can kill. Any monster can destroy. We choose something harder. We choose to be better than you." The defeated Kreth fleet was towed to neutral space. The crews were released. The ships were returned after their weapons were removed. It was an act of mercy that shocked the galaxy. Some said the humans were weak. Some said they were foolish. But others understood. The humans were sending a message. They were showing what they could have done. They were proving that they had the power to destroy but chose not to use it. While the human fleet held the line, Captain Okonkwo traveled to the Sinari homeworld. She carried evidence that she had gathered over months of investigation. Evidence of something far worse than Kreth aggression. Ambassador Valthara met her at the spaceport. The two women had developed a strange relationship. Not quite friendship, not quite trust, but something close to understanding. "You should not have come," Valthara said. "The Kreth have allies here. It is not safe." "Nowhere is safe," Mira replied, "but I did not survive 12,000 years by hiding from danger. I have something to show you. Something important." They met in a secure room deep beneath the Sinari government building. Mira activated her holographic display and began to show Valthara what she had found. The original attack on Earth had not been decided by the Concord. It had not been voted on. It had not been discussed. It had been planned and executed by a small group of beings who operated in secret. They called themselves the Eldest. They were the first species to achieve space travel, millions of years before anyone else. They had guided the development of the galaxy from the shadows. They decided which species would rise and which would fall. They controlled everything. They saw humanity as a threat, Mira explained, not because we were violent, because we were unpredictable. We did not follow their plans. We made our own choices, so they tried to eliminate us. Valthara stared at the evidence. Documents, communications, records that proved everything. The Eldest had manipulated the Concord for 10,000 years. The Kreth were their puppets. The war was their doing. "Why are you showing me this?" Valthara asked. "Because you have a choice to make. The Eldest are still out there. They are still pulling strings. They want this war to continue until humanity and the Concord destroy each other. Then they will step in and take control of whatever remains. What can we do against beings that powerful?" Mira smiled. It was a tired smile, a sad smile. "The same thing humanity did when they tried to destroy us. We survive. We adapt. We fight. Together." While they talked, the war continued. The Kreth launched more attacks. Human forces responded with the same precise, merciful violence. Disable, capture, release, over and over. Other species watched and began to understand. The humans were not fighting to conquer. They were fighting to defend. They were fighting to protect. They were fighting for everyone who had ever been abandoned by the Concord. The small species started to act, the ones who had been ignored for centuries, the ones who had been exploited and forgotten. They sent their own ships to join the human fleet. They sent supplies and information and volunteers. It was not a large force, but it was a beginning. The Kreth grew frustrated. Their attacks were failing. Their fleet was being destroyed piece by piece, and now other species were turning against them. Admiral Krethos received new orders from his hidden masters. The Eldest had decided that subtle manipulation was no longer enough. They would reveal themselves. They would take direct control. And they would end the human threat once and for all. The final battle was coming. Mira Okonkwo stood on the bridge of her ship and looked at the stars. She had spent her whole life preparing for this moment. Her entire family had spent generations preparing. Every human had carried the memory of betrayal and the dream of justice. Now that dream was about to be tested. "Captain," her officer reported, "we are detecting a massive fleet emerging from hyperspace. Unknown configuration, unknown origin. They are heading directly for us." Mira nodded slowly. "The Eldest. They are finally showing themselves." "What are your orders?" She looked around at her crew. Humans from Earth, aliens from a dozen species, all of them watching her, all of them waiting. "We fight," she said simply. "We fight for everyone they ever hurt. We fight for every species they ever betrayed. We fight so no one ever has to be forgotten again." The crew cheered. The ships formed up. The final battle began, and humanity faced its oldest enemy at last. The Eldest fleet was massive. 10,000 ships emerged from the darkness of space. Each one was ancient and powerful. Each one carried weapons that could destroy planets. They had been waiting in the shadows for millions of years. Now they came to finish what they had started 12,000 years ago. Captain Mira Okonkwo looked at the enemy fleet on her display. The human ships were outnumbered 20 to 1. The Allied ships from other species were even smaller. By any normal calculation, they had already lost. But humans had never cared about normal calculations. "Open a channel to the eldest," Mira ordered. "Let them speak their piece." The view screen flickered. A face appeared. It was hard to describe. It was old beyond imagination. It had seen stars born and die. It had watched civilizations rise and fall, like waves on a beach. "I am the first voice of the eldest," it said. "We have guided this galaxy for longer than you can comprehend. Every advancement, every discovery, every war and peace, all of it has been our design." "Except for humanity," Mira replied quietly. "Yes, except for humanity. You were in error. A mistake in our calculations. You were supposed to die 12,000 years ago. But you refused. You survived when you should have perished. You grew strong when you should have remained weak. And now," the first voice almost smiled, "now we offer you a choice. Join us. Become our partners. Help us guide the galaxy as we always have. You have proven your strength. We can use beings like you." Mira was silent for a long moment. Around her, her crew watched and waited. The Allied fleet held its position. Everyone wanted to know what she would say. "We spent 12,000 years in darkness," she finally said. "We survived on poisoned air and recycled water. We raised our children in caves and tunnels. We watched our people die from diseases we could not cure. We buried our dead in mass graves because we had no room for anything else." Her voice grew harder. "And through all of that, we kept one thing alive. Hope. The hope that someday we would return to the stars. The hope that we would find justice. The hope that we would be free." She stood up from her chair. "You are offering us power. You are offering us a place beside you. But you are not offering us freedom. You are not offering us justice. You are offering us the chance to become what abandoned us." "Then you choose death," the first voice said. "No, we choose something else entirely." Mira touched a control on her chair. Every communication channel in the galaxy opened at once. Every species, every world, every ship, all of them could now hear what she was about to say. "People of the galaxy, I am Captain Mira Okonkwo of Earth. I speak to you not as a conqueror or a ruler. I speak to you as a survivor, as someone who knows what it means to be abandoned and forgotten." She took a deep breath. "The beings you see before you are called the eldest. They have controlled this galaxy from the shadows for millions of years. They decide who lives and who dies. They start wars and end them. They manipulate every species to serve their own purposes. The Kreth War was their doing. The destruction of Earth was their doing. Every tragedy you have ever suffered was part of their plan." She held up her hand and activated her holographic display. The evidence appeared on every screen in the galaxy. Documents, communications, records, proof of everything. "This is the truth they have hidden from you. This is the history they have erased. They are not gods. They are not protectors. They are parasites who feed on your suffering." The first voice's expression changed. For the first time in millions of years, it felt something it had almost forgotten. Fear. "Stop this," it commanded. "Stop this now." "No," Mira replied. "The truth cannot be stopped. It can only be hidden for a while, but it always comes out in the end." Across the galaxy, people watched and listened. They saw the evidence. They understood what had been done to them, and they made their choice. The Kreth fleet turned against the eldest. Admiral Krethos broadcast his own message, declaring that he would no longer serve masters who had manipulated his people. Other species did the same. Fleets that had been preparing to attack humanity now pointed their weapons at the ancient enemy. The eldest were alone. The battle was brutal but short. The eldest had power, but they had grown arrogant over millions of years. They had never expected the galaxy to unite against them. They had never expected humanity to choose truth over power. When it was over, the first voice's ship drifted dead in space. Its ancient masters were gone. Their control was broken forever. The galaxy was free. The work of rebuilding took years. A new concord was formed. This time, every species had an equal voice. This time, there were no hidden masters pulling strings. This time, the forgotten and abandoned had a seat at the table. Earth was offered a position of leadership. Many thought humanity had earned the right to rule, but Mira Okonkwo refused. "We did not survive 12,000 years to become rulers," she said. "We survived to be free. And freedom means choosing your own path, not having someone else choose it for you." She retired from the Defense Force and returned to Earth. She had done what her ancestors had dreamed of for generations. She had brought humanity back to the stars. She had found justice. She had broken the chains that held the galaxy. Now she wanted to rest. On a warm evening, Mira walked through the streets of New Geneva. The city was celebrating. Music played. People danced. Humans and aliens from a dozen species laughed together under the stars. But Mira did not join the celebration. She walked to the edge of the city, where a memorial stood in a quiet garden. It was a wall, a simple wall of black stone. On it were carved billions of names, every human who had died during the 12,000 years of darkness. Every person who had given their life so that humanity could survive. Mira stood before the wall for a long time. She reached out and touched the stone. It was cool and smooth under her fingers. "We did it," she whispered. "We came back. We remembered. And we did not become them." She thought about everything her people had suffered. The pain, the loss, the anger. For 12,000 years, that anger had burned in human hearts like a fire that would never die. But they had not let it consume them. They had not become monsters. They had chosen mercy when they could have chosen destruction. They had chosen justice when they could have chosen revenge. That was what made them human. Mira looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, a new galaxy was being born. New species were waking up. New civilizations were taking their first steps into the darkness. Humanity would be there to meet them, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as friends, as guides, as survivors who understood what it meant to be alone and afraid. The galaxy had forgotten Earth, but humanity had never forgotten itself, and that had made all the difference. Mira smiled and walked back toward the city. The music was calling. The celebration was waiting. And for the first time in 12,000 years, humanity could finally rest. They had come home at last. The end.